New developments tonight in the search for 84-year-old Nancy Guthrie, more than 4 months after she disappeared from her Tucson home. Volunteers in Mexico say they received a tip about where her remains could be. 12 News reporter Maria Stobbs is here with the latest. Maria?
Mark, that's right. This search group regularly looks for missing people, and they've helped find the remains of dozens of people in the Nogales area. But this is the first time they've received a tip that specifically mentioned Nancy Guthrie.
Okay. Stop what you are doing, because a single anonymous phone call may have just changed the direction of one of the most closely watched missing person investigations in America. For more than 4 months, investigators, volunteers, analysts, and Nancy Guthrie's family have searched for answers. Thousands of leads have been processed. Thousands of tips have been reviewed. Yet despite all of that effort, one question has remained unanswered. Where is Nancy Guthrie? Now, on day 132 of the investigation, a new lead has emerged from across the border in Mexico. Not from law enforcement, not from a press conference, not from a witness willing to stand in front of cameras. Instead, it came from an anonymous caller who contacted a volunteer search organization in Sonora and provided information detailed enough to launch an immediate search operation. According to that caller, Nancy Guthrie is buried in the Mariposa area near Nogales, hidden in an unmarked grave close to a stream. Within hours, volunteers were moving through the desert, searching terrain that has already been linked to dozens of concealed graves from unrelated cases. The search did not immediately uncover Nancy, but what it revealed may be just as important. Tonight, we are going to examine every detail: the anonymous tip, the search operation, the geography connecting Tucson to the Mexican border, the timeline that investigators have been studying since February, and perhaps most importantly, the question that now hangs over this entire case. Who made that call, and how did they know what they knew? The first thing we need to understand is why this anonymous tip immediately attracted attention. High-profile missing person investigations generate enormous numbers of false leads. Most are vague. Most provide little information investigators can actually use. This tip was different. The information provided pointed to a specific region known as Mariposa near Nogales, Sonora. It also referenced a grave located near a stream. That level of detail is important because it narrows the search area significantly. Instead of searching endless miles of desert, volunteers suddenly had a location and a physical landmark. The organization that received the call is not an inexperienced volunteer group. They specialize in locating missing persons and identifying clandestine graves throughout Sonora. Their members have spent years searching difficult terrain and have helped recover remains in areas where official resources are limited. What makes this development even more significant is the history of the region itself. Between April and May, search teams operating in the same general area reportedly discovered more than 25 concealed graves and recovered the remains of at least 32 individuals connected to other missing person investigations. That means this is not simply an empty stretch of desert chosen at random. It is an area with a documented history of hidden burial sites. When an anonymous caller identifies a location inside a region already known for clandestine graves, investigators naturally pay attention. Volunteers quickly mobilized after receiving the information. They entered the area and began searching. The first operation did not uncover Nancy Guthrie. However, search organizers stated that the specific stream described by the caller had not yet been completely examined and that additional searches were planned. This is where the story becomes particularly interesting. If the caller truly possesses direct knowledge, then the location matters. If the caller is mistaken, investigators still gain valuable information by eliminating another possibility. Either outcome contributes something to the broader investigation. Then there is the geographic connection. Nancy disappeared from Tucson, Arizona. The Mariposa crossing near Nogales represents one of the most direct routes from Tucson into Sonora. Interstate 19 runs almost straight south toward the border. Under normal conditions, the drive can be completed in a relatively short period of time. That geographic reality has led many observers to revisit earlier discussions about possible escape routes. Throughout the investigation, analysts have examined traffic patterns, vehicle movements, and timing estimates. The possibility that a vehicle could travel south toward the border within the available timeline has remained a subject of debate. It is important to emphasize that speculation is not evidence. Law enforcement has repeatedly stated that there is no confirmed evidence establishing that Nancy was taken into Mexico. At the same time, investigators are obligated to follow credible leads wherever they go. That is exactly what makes this anonymous call so significant. It introduces a new location that investigators cannot simply ignore. Whether the information ultimately proves accurate or inaccurate, it creates a fresh avenue for inquiry. The biggest mystery remains the source. Someone chose to make that call. Someone believed the information was important enough to share. And someone provided details specific enough to trigger a search operation. Understanding who that person is may ultimately become just as important as understanding the location itself. As news of the search spread, attention quickly turned toward the response from authorities. Official statements often reveal as much through what they avoid saying as through what they openly confirm. Authorities acknowledged awareness of the reports and indicated that the investigation remains active. They also emphasized that they continue evaluating all credible information. That language matters because it signals that the lead has not been immediately dismissed. When investigators encounter information like this, they typically focus on three questions. First, how specific is the information? Second, can any portion of it be independently verified? Third, who might possess the knowledge necessary to provide it? The anonymous caller's description appears to satisfy the first requirement. The location was not described in general terms. It pointed toward a recognizable area and referenced a specific environmental feature. Verification becomes more difficult. Search teams can examine the location, but absence of evidence during an initial search does not automatically invalidate the tip. Terrain can be challenging. Search conditions can change. Information can also be partially correct while containing inaccurate details. The third question may be the most important of all. Who would know enough to provide such information? There are several possibilities. The caller could be someone with direct knowledge of events. The caller could be someone who heard information from another person. The caller could be repeating a rumor that circulated within a particular community. Or the caller could be attempting to mislead investigators entirely. History shows that major criminal investigations often turn on information from unexpected sources. Sometimes it comes from a witness who initially remains silent. Sometimes it comes from an associate who experiences guilt. Sometimes it comes from a person seeking personal advantage. And sometimes it comes from someone who simply decides they can no longer keep a secret. Investigators understand this pattern well. That is why even anonymous tips receive attention when they contain specific, actionable information. Another important factor involves timing. Why now? Why wait more than 4 months before making contact? If the caller truly knows something, what changed? Fear? Guilt, conflict, pressure, or changing circumstances could all influence a person's decision to come forward. This timing question is often overlooked, but it can be incredibly valuable. Investigators frequently learn as much from the moment a tip arrives as they do from the content itself. Meanwhile, the broader investigation continues to generate enormous amounts of information. Thousands of leads have already been reviewed. Every new detail must be compared against existing evidence. Phone records, vehicle sightings, witness statements, forensic findings, and prior tips all become part of the evaluation process. That process can be slow, but it is essential. A single accurate detail hidden within thousands of reports can eventually unlock an entire case. For now, the anonymous caller has introduced a new variable into the investigation. Whether that variable leads directly to answers remains unknown. But it has already succeeded in shifting attention toward a location that previously occupied a much smaller role in public discussion. At this stage, the investigation faces several possible paths forward. Each carries different implications, and each could dramatically affect what happens next. The first possibility is the one everyone immediately thinks about. Search teams locate evidence directly connected to Nancy Guthrie. Such a discovery would fundamentally change the case. Questions about location would be answered, and investigators could focus more intensely on determining responsibility. The second possibility is less dramatic but still important. Searchers find evidence unrelated to Nancy yet relevant to criminal activity in the area. Even that outcome could provide context regarding why the anonymous caller selected this location and whether the region plays a larger role in ongoing investigations. The third possibility is that the searches continue without producing results. While many people would view that as a dead end, investigators rarely think that way. Negative results still provide information. They narrow possibilities, eliminate locations, and help refine future strategies. Regardless of which outcome occurs, the anonymous caller remains central to the story. Think about the level of confidence required to make such a call. The caller did not merely suggest looking somewhere in Sonora. They identified a particular area. They described a specific feature. They provided enough detail to motivate action. That suggests either knowledge or conviction. Both are important. One of the most fascinating aspects of criminal investigations is that information rarely appears in isolation. Tips connect to other tips. Witnesses connect to other witnesses. Evidence connects to previously overlooked details. Investigators spend enormous amounts of time searching for those connections. If the caller possesses genuine knowledge, there is a strong possibility that additional evidence already exists somewhere within the thousands of reports collected over the last 4 months. The challenge is recognizing the connection. Cases often appear stagnant until suddenly multiple pieces align at once. A witness speaks. Atiparives. A search produces new information. A forensic result returns. Individually, none of those developments may seem decisive. Together, they can transform an investigation. That is why the current moment matters. Not because answers have already been found, but because new questions have emerged. Who made the call? How did they obtain their information? Why did they decide to come forward now? Is the location significant? And if it is, what else remains undiscovered? Those questions will likely shape the next phase of the Nancy Guthrie investigation. The search itself may continue. Additional information may emerge. Authorities may learn more about the source of the tip. Each development will help determine whether this lead becomes a breakthrough or simply another chapter in a complex and difficult case. For now, one fact remains undeniable. A single anonymous phone call has redirected attention toward the Sonoran desert and created one of the most significant developments the investigation has seen in months. Before we end tonight, I want you to think about something. Every major case eventually reaches a moment when one piece of information changes everything. Sometimes it is a witness. Sometimes it is a forgotten detail. Sometimes it is a single phone call made by someone who finally decides they cannot stay silent any longer. Right now, we do not know whether this anonymous tip will become that moment. We do not know whether the search will uncover answers. We do not know whether investigators will identify the person who made the call. But we do know that someone out there knows more than they have said. If you have been following this case, let me know your thoughts below. Do you believe the anonymous caller has genuine knowledge? Or do you think this will turn out to be another false lead? I read every comment, and some of the best discussions happen right there in the community. And if you value detailed, fact-focused true crime coverage that follows developments as they happen, make sure you subscribe to Court of Secrets and turn on notifications. Cases like this evolve quickly, and when new information emerges, you will want to know about it immediately. Most importantly, if you have any information related to the disappearance of Nancy Guthrie, no matter how small it may seem, contact the appropriate authorities. Sometimes the detail that appears insignificant today becomes the breakthrough that changes everything tomorrow. Thank you for watching, thank you for being here, and I will see you in the next update.